Bodie,
Here.
Cacciatore,
Here.
Carberry Montgomery,
Here.
Kroll,
Here.
Rosendahl.
Here.
Thank you.
Again, I'll dispose of reading the character account statement that we will be operating under those principles. Please be mindful of that. Item 3 is to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Bodie, I'm sorry. Discussion, roll call.
Rosendahl,
Yes.
Bodie,
Yes.
Cacciatore,
Yes.
Kroll,
Yes.
Carberry Montgomery.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's where Larry used to sit, so it's always. It's just a metal block sometimes. All right. Item 4 is to review the CIP sections, and we're going to start with bridges. So, John?
All right, good evening, everybody. Tonight's kind of the precursor to hearing me speak at all the meetings coming forward with all the bids, so getting used to it here. So a lot of our different projects have designation of being out in the future year. Some of them I'll hit on more detail, some I might just mention what they are and keep going. If you want to hear more about it, let me know, and I'll definitely provide more information on the project. In bridges, we just have two different pages. The first one's on page 33. It's our Urban Hills Bridge over Walnut Creek. So this is located to the northwest of Waterford Road and 156th Street. Several years ago, when they were first doing the Urban Hills developments to the south, we felt it was important to get a connection that would be able to go north-south. And being that this was over Walnut Creek in a fairly significant drainage way, we felt the only way to get this the city would have to contribute some of the cost. So it's been set up that this Urban Hills part would contribute 1/8 of the cost. We're hoping when this property develops up here, we get an agreement that says they'll give 25% of the cost, the city will pick up the rest. One thing I'd like to note, it refers to it here as a bridge project. And we say, they pay for a portion of the bridge. That's because the development agreement calls it the bridge, but later defines the bridge also includes the street that goes through the park. So it's pretty much building everything through the park area. So again, these total costs are based on what will be the 1/8 and the 25%.
And that prior fund, like there's 165,000 as the prior. Is that like a payment that was made by a different development?
The Urban Hills down here had to pay as they were platting, so they've already done it. And the agreement also states that, say for instance, because this has been there for several years, basically, if that 167's not, or 165 is not enough, they still need to make up their difference on what the costs are at the time it's being built. So again, this is in an out year. We'll kind of wait and see. This piece up here was owned by Lamar Cothy, so with his passing, maybe some development happens sooner. We'll see, but as of right now, it's an out year, and once development happens, we'll start to see how it may move forward in the CIP. And our second one is on page 34. This is likely will be a triple box culvert that will work with an extension of Waterford Road in the future. Again, we have an out year. It'll take development for it to happen. As far as the extension of Waterford Road, I'll just talk more about that when we get to the street section. So with that, that's everything on bridges, unless there's any questions.
Is the I-3580 pedestrian bridge, like we say bridges, when we say bridges, it's like road bridges, not trail bridges?
We did not break that one out separate, so no, that the interstate crossing is under sidewalks.
Okay.
Yep, so we will get to that one. Now we go into the sidewalk section. Our first one is page 35, and it's our ADA pedestrian access transition plan. This is basically the $100,000 that we spend each year. Just a little background on this. You're required to have this transition plan in order to receive any federal money. So, and what the plan required is that we analyze the entire city, note anywhere we had deficiencies in our ADA ramps, and then come up with a plan for replacing them. So we decided that we would spend that $100,000 a year to upgrade the ramps. Just want to kind of note that's not the only time we update ramps. Anytime we do a concrete patch by ramp, we update that as well. When we're doing our storm sewer projects, we're reconstructing the street, we also update the ramp. So we do actually a lot more than the 100,000. That's just kind of where we're at. And then, because again, we're required come 2032, reevaluate all the ramps again and start the plan again, kind of is how it's set up. All right, page 36. I think this has been called the 114th Street Sidewalk Project. It's actually our third and final year, so we switched it to the Aurora Avenue because that's the portion we're doing now. Just for reference, Meredith up here, we had Douglas Avenue down here. 2 years ago, we constructed a sidewalk on the west side of 114th Street from Meredith down to Aurora. And then this year actually, we constructed it on the west side of 114th from Aurora all the way on down to Douglas. So this will be our third phase where we're connecting it on the south side of Aurora, where it'll ultimately tie into the sidewalk they have around their pond. So again, this last phase will be in 2026. Our next one on page 37 is the construction of a 10-foot wide trail between 86th Street over to just west of Patricia Drive. I think this one, since there's several projects where these all tied together, I'll just do a quick overview of what we have going on. So again, this is one we just talked about that we're looking to construct in 2029. We finally completed the piece that went under the railroad and came over to the same connection. We have the trail trail in front of the Parks and Public Works. And then we'll talk later about a project where we'll look to reconstruct the frontage road, and that'll allow for sharrows, and then we'll also have the sidewalk for pedestrians. And then we have a project from the 100th Street that'll bring us out to the entrance into Living History Farms or the machine shed. And then the DOT's project will bring it from the machine shed over to the entrance into Heritage Park or Lifetime Fitness. And then the trail that we recently constructed with the DOT as part of 128th Street and Hickman project came up to that access. So again, in the next several years, we'll have a real good connection along Hickman Road from 86th Street out west. Our next one is
John, is that ultimately going to get us all the way to the trailhead in Waukee for the Raccoon River Valley Trail?
yes, it does.
What parts are already in place west of the interstate, if any?
I think everything's in place.
Yeah.
I mean, in Urbandale from the interstate west, we have trail?
Yeah, that almost all of that was built when Highway 6
Long
was
time ago.
reconstructed.
Okay.
So that all happened in the late 90s, early 2000s.
I've been on there in Waukee, but I don't think I've been on in Urbandale, so thanks.
You can get to it through Clive now,
Yep, I get to it.
but it'll be cool to do it this way.
Okay, so our next one is page 38. So again, this would one of the pieces I talked about, the trail along Hickman Road between 100th Street over towards the entrance into Living History Farms. We're looking to do that in 2027, the same time that the trail should be completed that comes through the interstate. We did receive $400,000 in federal funds to help with this project. Here's the one that was just asked about, the pedestrian bridge crossing over the interstate. So with this one, we hired a consultant to analyze different options. They looked at a couple different that were kind of call them mid-mile here. They had this one, and then there's another one that came up the other side, came under the interstate bridge, and then came up. That option, the DOT said no way, so that one got dropped out pretty quickly. Even though it's happened elsewhere in the metro, they were not going to let us do that one. So we looked at the other options, and it really came down to, you know, we have a connection at 100th Street, putting one at the mid-mile. I don't know how likely people are to use that when we've got a few people that do walk or bike on 86th Street now across the interstate, that they're gonna go the half mile out of the way, then the half mile back, depending on where they're going. So again, being closer to 86th Street made some sense. And the way it's proposed to work is we would widen the sidewalk here. There'd be a tunnel underneath the two interstate ramps. You'd come around, come up to a pedestrian bridge up and over, and then be able to cross. And the line doesn't quite show, but we continue the trail to connect up here to North Park and connect those. So what it would really do, it'd be a great way to connect the, you know, hotels and restaurants here with the hotels and restaurants on the south side. What we've done this year, we originally had it in 2028. We've moved it over to a future year that we're going to try to either look at grants or see if there's any additional funding that can be obtained from the local businesses there to help move this project along.
You said before the ramp, it would go under, and then there's that big loop that is outside of it that gets you
Yep.
up.
Yep, that gets
So
you
at
up.
the end on the north side there, is that also under that ramp, or is that?
No, that's at grade, because you got the traffic signal in the way of the traffic, because this is an entrance ramp versus this is different with it being the exit. So you would just have people with the right turns that you would have to deal with for traffic, and again, it's a signalized intersection.
Okay.
Our next one is page 40, and this is one for reconstructing the sidewalk to a trail from roughly 200 feet east of 86th Street over to the trail that comes out of Meredith Park. This is proposed in 2028. I know in the past, there's been asked about what we could do for potentially widening this last piece through here. So we, approached Mid-American, asked what it would cost, because they've got some gas regulator stations right here, what it would cost to move those, because they would be in the way. Those, they've estimated $220,000 to move those. And then we would need to move it back, to create a new wall here. We'd likely lose/have to buy a couple parking stalls here to get the spacing and then get things to go through. So we're estimating it could be in the $500,000 to $600,000 for that last 200 feet. So at this time, have not included that in the CIP. Just want to remind everybody too that in the Complete Streets Master Plan, it does mention, you know, there will be spots where you'll be narrower, and that's just kind of how you make things fit in a retrofit area, that not everything gets as wide or as, you know, as big as you would like it to be there.
With the parking situation and the changes to the minimums that we've made, would they still, like, if that was a project that we would pursue, would they still fall above, or would they still have above the minimum?
I don't know that for sure, but my guess is yes, they would
Okay.
still be okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And again, I don't know if ownership's changed a lot. I was involved in the easements the first time to do this. And they did tell us, you got as close to our sign as we want you to get. We'll let you this time. So I think it would be a challenge trying to get more easement and pushing that retaining wall closer to their signage. But anything would be possible. Our next one, page 41. This is kind of completing a missing segment here, and I caught an error. If Vivian has a chance to change it. It does say a 5-foot wide trail. It's really a 5-foot sidewalk. I don't think we got any real 5-foot trails. So anyway, it's just gonna be a sidewalk here. And what it'll do is, it'll connect the hotel and the businesses through here down to Sutton Place and basically the sidewalk network that's down there. And then, basically, this is the DART stop that was recently constructed, so it will kind of tie everything to the bus stop there. We currently have that for a 2029 project.
And is this still on the network?
When I looked, I believe it is, because they still
think
showed the
so.
Merle Hay, and I would have to believe with the project,
With Monarch there.
Oh,
Yeah.
with Project Des Moines did there, they will keep this bus stop.
gotcha.
I think that's where a lot of the growth in the DART
Yeah.
numbers have come from, this particular
And I know
area.
that
Okay.
they're staying on Merle Hay Road, because we're not gonna go into the mall anymore. So the people will be getting on and off the buses on Merle Hay Road, so.
So like I said, that was how, again, I don't know that it says specifically when I looked at the, the DART plan, but I would think this is significant enough, it would stay there.
Gotcha.
Our next one is on page 42. This would be a 10-foot trail along Northwest Urbandale Drive, connecting our trail system on Meredith Drive up to around Plum Drive here. Recently, this is where the Gerber collision is being proposed. They had to replat this area, so we, at this time, got the easements from them we needed to build this trail, because basically, when we redid the intersection here and widened it out for the turn lanes, we're fairly tight in the right-of-way, so we're gonna need more room to fit a trail in there, and the owner was gracious enough to say, yeah, we'll donate that to you. Page 43 is a new sheet in the CIP. It's was part of the study to look at the crossing of the interstate. We also want them to look at Plum Drive and see which side of the road should it be on. We also wanted them to look at how would we lay out banner poles similar to what we did on North Park. So with that, they decided the south side made the most sense because we've got a trail that comes up, and we'd be able to, with this one, come across, meet up with 100th Street or go east and get to 86th Street. In the past on the CIP committees, there's been talk of, there were some questions asked about putting like an underpass through here at Plum Drive. We had Snyder evaluate that as well. They had a cost of roughly $625,000 to add that underpass. And from my perspective, besides the cost, it's a pretty significant drainage area here. We have a really hard time maintaining those type pedestrian culverts because every time it rains, they fill up with water, they fill up with mud. You have to close them, and then you're digging them out for the next month. So, so again, we've done a lot of work trying to keep the Douglas one open north of the park. I think this one would be even more challenging, and I don't think it gains you a whole lot right now to get this side, because then you're likely on a sidewalk over here to 100th Street, you might just as well come here and cross at the traffic signal. But just want to let everybody know we did look at that. Let's see, the next one is page 44. This is kind of a sidewalk connection between the two Auroras. This was originally in 2029, but we moved it up to 2027. So basically, Aurora Avenue, when it got reconstructed and patched through this area, or this entire area, we added the Sharrows to make it more of a biking area. And then, of course, everybody's aware we got the complete street section on Aurora Avenue down here. There's not a good way between the two without kind of going on to 86th Street, because all there is that runs through here now is a 4-foot sidewalk. So what the plan would be is to widen that out to make a good connection between the two Auroras. Also, I drive by it quite a bit. There's usually a little water standing on it or kind of iced up. It just doesn't drain well. So if we rebuild that, we'd be able to hopefully fix the drainage, and then again, make a nice connection, safer connection between the two Aurora Avenues.
It's I'd use it, John, so.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Our next one is page 45, which is right outside the building here. Since we constructed our complete street section here along Douglas, we're looking to do a 10-foot trail along City Hall on the west side of 86th Street, and then get a connection back into Charles Gabus Park. I think this is kind of a connection we've been missing for a long time to get back in there. So we would do that. That's all proposed for next year. And then in 2029, I believe I find it here, yep, 29, we would just continue this section on down to the creek. Couple things I want to talk about more detail on this one here. All right, so as we're, like I said, so we need to come through this area. Well, now we've got, you know, the bus shelter here. We've got our monument sign, and then the trail fitting through. It's fairly tight through there. I got a picture here to kind of show that. You know, we're pretty tight. It'll kind of fit through, but again, it's just not ideal to fit the full 10-foot trail through there. So what we're proposing right now is what we would like to do is, with the trail project, remove this monument sign. We all feel it's kind of met its life. In the time that I've been here, I know it's changed at least 3 times, if not more, on the verbiage and how it looks. And that would give us the opportunity to kind of look at a comprehensive look at our campus. We've added new signage, figure out is there better ways to do signage, and then come with something maybe that's more appropriate with the flagpoles and everything there that kind of blends together. So just want to make sure everybody was okay that if we remove the sign with the project, that way we don't have to narrow up the sidewalk, come back later and widen it back out, knowing that we might have a short time where we don't have a monument sign out there, but I still think people will be able to find us.
As long as we can have a demo day to take a sledgehammer.
If you want to throw the first sledgehammer, we can set that up. Okay.
I assume that DART location is going to remain there as well.
When I looked at it, I think they're still staying on 86th Street. I think maybe the Aurora one may go away.
Yeah.
They didn't show anything on that. As far as the ones where they built the better. And I would guess the one that we have just to the north that's a sign would probably go away as well. They would just use this one.
There will be a massive undertaking in the next 6 months of changing the signage for the bus stops. But, I mean, we've put an investment here on this bus shelter. It's not going anywhere, but Blake was all over it on the Aurora one from day one. And I'm suggesting, I don't know if we've said this in the meeting, but that we move it in front of the food pantry. That'll be down, a
6 months
decision
from
for
now.
down the road, maybe sooner rather than later, but
That's a good idea, though.
I just thought that made sense.
Okay.
With the cut-in on the 2026 portion, that's like we're proposing a trail on the north side of that road in, right?
Correct. I'll zoom in here a little bit. Yeah, so we're looking on being on the north side. We'll come on down. You'll be able to come across here, get tied in on this side, and then you're into the rest of the system there. Again, it's just one of those things over the years. It was set up originally, you know, to walk through kind of the middle of the parking lot here. Don't see a lot of people doing that. I see a lot more people either walking in the street here or in the grass over here. So just thought it'd be a good idea to add a connection back there. Okay, so our next one is our last one on page 46. We currently have a trail that comes through Gulfview Park, and we have a trail in LA Ward Park, but then it comes out, and the connection really between the two of them is a 4-foot sidewalk. So we look to widen that out and keep it consistent throughout the area. This one's proposed in 2029 right now. So that is our last sidewalk. Any other questions on those?
Curtis liked that one.
That's a kind of quick question. When I was going through there, I think there was one or two exceptions, but almost all of these things were, in terms of the Complete Streets Plan, kind of long-term recommendations. And I was just wondering, have we kind of run out of medium-term?
We have, some of them are just a matter of looking. We really have gotten down to, a lot of them, I would say, really are dependent on, the roadway reconstruction.
Yeah.
Or we just don't have the right-of-way or ownership to make them happen. So, my thoughts are, and Kristen probably agrees, I think we've made a pretty good dent in the plan. And again, we're still always looking for more things can we add, but I think we've made a pretty good dent in the plan so far on what we can do now that's available to us.
Well, that's what I was thinking you might say, but I just kind of wanted to double check. Yeah, that's really great news. And I also thought maybe some of the short and medium term was maybe more west, where we were going to do them when we're building out the road or whatever.
Yep.
But I was just curious. Thank you. Yeah, cool.
These are great projects.
Yeah.
Go ahead into stormwater. Again, this one's similar, that has a lot of out-year ones, but I thought I'd start off with the first one, even though it's an out-year, just go through how we got to where we are with a lot of the section for the stormwater. It was, in 2021 is when we did the drainage study, and we looked at everything more or less east of 86th Street, south of Meredith Drive, to see if the storm sewer we did have, was it adequate, which we all pretty much knew it was not. And also have the consultant, they looked at what size should it be so we could start to plan ahead. So we've been working through kind of that priority list. And one of the two main goals are, one, to have the storm sewer to reduce flooding, then also to add the foundation drains or sump pump connections for people so we can get that disconnected from the sanitary sewer. Just a little quick update. So far through our disconnect program, we have had 88 addresses contact us. Fortunately, 28 of them were found to be in compliance, so that's really good. There's boom right out of the program. It's been slow as far as grants. We've only done 3 so far, but I'm not surprised. I think most things will probably happen next spring into the summer. So again, I think things have been progressing and been kind of going, I'd say, as we've had planned.
Of those 3 that we've done for grants, what, in terms of project cost, is it like how much of the grant is covering the total cost of the project?
I can tell you, like, for instance, one of them was, we picked it all up. It was, between us and the district, it was like a little over $1,700. Theirs was minor. The other ones, can you help me out, Kristen?
Yeah, one of them was right around 3,500, and then the other one was, I want to say it's like 8 or 9, and so which is what we expected. We expected a wide range of costs that needed to be done, and we've seen that already.
Gotcha.
Yep,
8
so-
or 9,000.
100, I assume.
8 or 9,000. So
Oh,
for those
1,000,
2, they got the full grant amount. And the one, like John said, was less than the grant.
Gotcha.
So again, not much of a sample set to talk. We're still just really encouraging people to talk to multiple people to get multiple prices.
That's
Again, so this first one is on page 47. It is in an out year for some improvements along Airline Avenue, just for kind of in relation. Our 73rd Place project came down through here, empty to the creek. This will just pick up this and bring it over to the creek. And then we've already been we got another project coming through here, so we're just kind of working our way through the system.
Is this an undersized pipe or is there no pipe at all?
It could be a combination. Most areas are. Well, actually, I can tell you quick here. We'll go to this area. Right up here. there we go, there's my airline. So for the most part, looks like airline does, the side streets do not have much. So again, we got it here, but we'll end up, let's see, 82nd and 79. Yeah, see 79 doesn't have anything here. So again, with most of this area, there's areas with it. I know it's undersized for what we do have there, but then there are also areas with none at all right now.
Gotcha.
Page 48 is our annual creek and stream improvements. Just right now, we actually have a lot kind of going on, or call it in the hopper. Right now, we have bid out work in Gulfview Creek. That's, you kind of call it around Aurora Avenue east of 100th Street, and the Walnut Creek area kind of southwest of the roundabout. The contractor has started at the area south of the roundabout, and then when they're done with that, we'll follow up with the Gulf Creek. And then we have under design, there's the floodplain improvements. They're going on in Bent Creek Park, which is north of Meredith, kind of north of the Fire Station 43. Then just the other night, the engineering services were approved for the Days Run open space repair, and then the Walnut Creek Regional Park work east of 156th Street. Um, 49 is our next one, which is
Well, I'm sorry, could you go back a step? Is there, like, on the database that you guys have, that wonderful thing where you can put in your address or whatever, is there a layer that shows these? I'm asking because, you know, when I go to the next WMA meeting, they're gonna say, what are you guys doing?
I don't believe it goes to that detail. We
Yeah.
could get that put in there on it.
Well, or before the next meeting, can I get a map?
That'd be the easiest.
That'd-
to create a map.
That'd be great, thanks, because I felt like an idiot the last time. I was, yeah, not doing well. Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you.
We can get that.
And how are we doing with, working with them on the stream restoration identification pieces that we were talking about that?
I haven't heard an update from them since the last meeting on that, so I need to check in with them and see, we left it that they were gonna do some reconnaissance and get back to us, and I
Yeah.
haven't heard back yet, so.
Okay, perfect, all right, thanks.
Like I said, so our next one's page 49, which is improvements on Dennis Drive. This is out in the future, but again, storm sewer work coming over to Karen Acres Creek here. So, you know, we've been talking about trying to add more projects. So was looking at a way to maybe maximize dollars. So our next one, the page 50, is mostly just footing drains being installed. Was looking at areas where we have existing storm sewer, or we've done projects that were, hey, if we could just tie the 8-inch tiles into it, people could start connecting their houses. We wouldn't have to tear out the street. So again, a more economical way to go. As you can remember, it was more of a roadway project with 72nd Street that we did from Douglas up to Prairie by Olmsted Elementary. We reconstructed that road. We upgraded the storm sewer as a part of that. Well, a lot of this area here, half of it flows east, half flows west, so we could just come with that 8-inch tile across here and be able to connect people up. And this storm sewer system can actually handle that 8-inch being added to it. So again, just kind of found some areas where we could again add these tiles. So we've got one section, this, I don't even want to call it, with the yellow in the middle in 2028, and then doing a couple more over here in 2029. So again, gets us the benefit of people having a sump connection and getting them again, kind of a low-cost option.
John, would we ever have to go back and put additional money into rebuilding those, or will the footing drains be sufficient?
That'll be sufficient. Yep, that was based on going back in and also looking where we had pipes and then looking what was in our recommended. Like I said, this someday on 71st here, this existing storm could stand to be a little bit bigger, but it's not enough that, you know, it can't handle sump drains. So again, I don't think we're in a big rush to do it. It's just slightly smaller than what it would normally be.
Thank you.
All right, so page 51 is the Madison Avenue improvements. So this is one that's currently under design and intended for construction starting in 2027. And this is one that's building off of the Douglas urbanization project. With that one, we brought a larger storm sewer pipe here on the north side of Douglas. So we'll be able to tie into that, have the storm on 81st, Madison, 83rd, and 82nd Street here. This is also one where we're in conjunction with the water department, since we were redoing all the street. They're also replacing their water main at the same time here. Then our next one, page 52, is similar to that other just basic 8-inch drain project. This is in a future year right now, but this one's got the 8-inch drain, and then any pipe work that needs to be done would be the smaller storm sewer, so like the 18-inch, things that we could do the back of curb and not really impact the streets, but again, gives us the ability to do improvements for a large section of the community here. Our next one is page 53, which is the Oliver Smith improvements. This is to the northeast of Cairn Acres and will tie into the improvements that we've been doing on Roseland Drive. So I'll talk about Roseland in more detail in a minute, but that's one thing that could happen with this, depending on Roseland's schedule, how this one stays on schedule, or if it might slip a year. Just kind of wait and see how things finish up there. But as of right now, it's proposed to start in 2029. So page 54 is a new sheet, and this is for the FEMA buyouts that we talked about. I'm kind of unfortunate, but this has been a much more cumbersome process than we really thought it would be here. Basically, with Iowa's Homeland Security, our application is still with them, and they're working on their final touches, and they say they got a deadline of December 21st to get it turned in. And in the past, it's usually taken about 3 months to find out the results if you've got the grant and can move forward. They said right now things are all taking longer, so we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But I think our original deadline was June of this year, and now it's December. So, and unfortunately, without their help, we really can't get it submitted. So we'll wait and see on this, but hopefully, from what we've been told, we've got a good application once it gets into the process.
What deadline are you referring to? June to December? That's
what they tell us for the program turn-ins and what they've had. I don't know if they
for
pushed
the
it
home buyers?
for
No,
FEMA.
or
No,
FEMA.
that's to find out. So where we're at right now is we've asked the property owners who wants to be considered for a voluntary buyout. These are the people that have said, yes, we'll consider it. Doesn't mean they have to. We'll have to make the offer. But you need to have an idea how many properties, know how much money to ask for.
So you have had I'm sure I asked this last year, but you've communicated with these folks?
Yes. We have some that communicate with us frequently asking, is it any further? Are you ready to buy me? And we say, can't yet, so we don't know. So yeah, we have communicated. Again, there was even some that didn't come back to be bought out, so.
Is there any kind of aftermath? Let's say, for the sake of argument, we do get through this process and buy most of these out. Is there any aftermath plan yet?
The thing is, there is the requirement, it has to be green space, and I don't think you're allowed to do a whole lot with it, is my recollection.
That's not a bad thing.
Right.
Okay, okay, yeah, thanks.
Correct. But yeah, I do recall, I can't remember all the restrictions, but I do recall there's restrictions on what we can do.
Okay. That's how we built Chautauqua.
So, page 55 is the Roseland Drive project, and we've done updates on this previously, that how slow things have gone. It's been a combination of the rain and the unfortunate with some of the subcontractors that they've had. We're intending it to be a 3-year project. Year 1 got us to almost 25% done, so we'll have to see how the next 2 years go. Hopefully, we're out of the very low area, that we'll be able to pick up some speed and be able to get it done in the next 2 years, but we shall see how things go.
Are people able to get to their homes now? Okay.
Everything is opened up now. Everybody's in their driveways. The sidewalks have all been poured. What the contractor's been working on now is, 1, removing the snow out of people's yards, 2, so they can backfill around the sidewalks. Because that's basically, they had all the sidewalks, everything poured right before Thanksgiving, and then all the snow came. So they're trying, and then it got really cold, so they're kind of trying to clean that up and just smooth things out for the rest, finish out this year. So their goal is to be done with everything they need to do by Friday.
Wow.
I drove through there the other day. You're
Okay.
able to get through. There's still a lot of equipment there.
Yeah, and we still have staggered barricades, but, and again, 'cause each time we've had to plow, guys gotta move the barricades, plow, put them back, but
So John, Roseland wraps up in 2027,
we got 25, 26, that's the intent, yep, is the end of 27.
and then we start Oliver Smith in 2029. It's going to be the same level of disruption in that
Correct.
neighborhood. How do we, I assume that's going to affect the traffic flow around Karen Acres School.
Correct, we'll have to work around school, just like we are now with the Roseland project. It got more difficult when it became the year-round school, because their breaks are shorter. So, we've got it set up that they gotta pick at the window that they're gonna close down the intersection and do the work during one of their breaks. The good thing, though, kind of the way this is set up, is ideally, I think you'd wanna come up to here, get ready for it, and if it's not at a good break time, you come down and keep working on Palm, so you can keep yourself busy. Ideally, they'd have a couple crews working on each street, we'll see, but again, we take that into account, how we do things and time it with their breaks.
What's the timing of our notification to the residents for Oliver Smith?
Typically, we would notify them once we'd done a design and had an idea how things were gonna work. The biggest challenge we have is, we're not against notifying early, it's just a lot of times we don't have any answers for them. What's it gonna do to my driveway? What's it gonna do, anything to my yard? I'm like, I don't know, So that gets to be the biggest challenge, is that we just can't answer very many questions. Our next one is page 56. This is extension off of our Merle Hay area project. This was originally planned for next year. We've moved it back 1 year. We're still trying to work through the design. What we found is right through here, we're kind of bucking kind of the natural drainage, and our culvert is very, very deep, and the trench is close to right away wide or a little more. And we're just don't see that as very constructible. So we're going to continue to work with our engineer on, can we divert some flow, maybe 64th, 65th in that area down, and maybe change up Madison a little bit to where we can make Airline, that structure or culvert, a little smaller, and maybe bring it up a little bit just so it's not so deep when it ties in. Just right now, we just weren't comfortable moving forward with the current design. So we're still figuring it's better to keep engineering and get something you're happy with and go out to bid on something that's gonna be difficult to do.
John, out of curiosity, does this impact where Merle Hay is fixing their fence?
No.
Okay.
No, we made sure we got, because again, we already did fence fix here and here.
Okay.
Because we had to remove it to make our connections. We made sure we got to the other side, and then again, we did the repairs there.
Great.
Page 57 is our 65th Street storm sewer improvements. This one too is nearing completion on design and ready to go out to bid for next year. This will involve some storm sewer improvements at the outlet of the creek, a fairly good sized culvert will be added to Meredith Drive, so there will need to be some closures for that, and we'll have detours. But 65th Street currently today has no storm sewer, so this will be storm sewer for them on this entire block. And I guess that takes us to the end of storm sewers. Any other questions on that?
Maybe we should cancel out the parks budget and just do it all in 1 year. What do you think?
Don't kill Jan.
I don't think it'd kill Jan, I think it would kill us.
No, I think, you've got an excellent plan that addresses, the needs that would be expressed by prior members of this committee.
Yep. Thank you. That's what we've been trying to do. That's our goal, is to keep getting in as much as we can here. On streets, our first one is our annual street program. That's where we have funds set aside each year, adjusted for inflation, to allow us to do the patching and other street maintenance. Just a heads up, next year, the areas we're looking at an area south and west of Douglas and 128th Street, so kind of south of Des Moines Christian. We're looking at doing stuff along Colby Woods Drive from Hickman up to Colby Parkway. And then we'll be in the Parkview Drive area east of 86th Street. I'll talk about that in a little more detail when we get to the Parkview Drive reconstruction, but really doing some patching in the cul-de-sacs prior to the reconstruction to kind of get those done before we come in. Our next one is Aurora Avenue, 128th Street to 142nd. We have this one in an out year. Some of the development that's going on, there's here, currently it's only about 2 lots being proposed. Chance it could be a few more houses in here. The early education with Des Moines Christian, kind of their preschool daycare building will be right here. Somewhere in the distant future, this is where they thought about a middle school, and then the high school here. The big thing is, like with the high school, they only intend to access from Meredith, so that won't have a lot of impact on the traffic on Aurora Avenue. I do know that we've talked, there's been concerns about the curve over here. Just wanted to looked at that a little bit. I know it's the full circle, but this, if we were gonna construct it to the design speed now and have this posted 35 miles an hour, this down here is where the road would need to be. So we'd be moving significantly northeast. It drops off quite a bit there in a heavily wooded area. We definitely have to acquire a lot of right-of-way, and this property owner in the past had us use the condemnation process on Meredith to get our right-of-way. I think we settled maybe the day before the hearing, but we had to go through that process. So I just wanted to share that, give kind of perspective. What we do have here is the advisory speed limits, which are appropriate for the radius that we do have here. And then I wanted to share again kind of our ultimate plan.
That's Harding there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Harding's, yes. I want to find, there we go. Then go back into, whoops. Basically, the reason, I know this is maybe less than desirable, but not spending a lot of money on it here, is our ultimate goal as things develop, come into Urbandale, would be for 142nd Street to come up through and then come over to 142nd Street over here north of Aurora. Then Aurora Avenue could come over here, tie in, and then this piece through here would basically just be more or less the driveway access for these two properties. This piece over here for that driveway, and this piece in the middle would not be needed any longer. So it's just, again, maybe it'll take, keep thinking I'm moving with my hand and I'm not here. You know, we just, again, haven't gotten every piece to fall into place yet, but this was something that was studied a little over 20 years ago on how would we like to realign the roadways. Again, it was all part of how 142nd Street got relocated over to the roundabout when the different options were looked at. So just, again, providing some background on that.
So John, what needs to happen? I mean, Harding needs to sell, and then we would buy property to do this, or?
Not necessarily. I mean, the most ideal way is, yes, someday he sells and it comes for development, and, you know, we work with them on, you know, dedicating some of this as right away. You know, there can be swaps, you know, once, you know, it's changing, it's gonna be developed, you know, we could trade this right away for more of the right of way that we would need for this realignment. So it all kind of just depends on how things come together, but it seems like you really need a developer who's coming up with a master plan, so you can really, you know, there's some variability that this could move maybe a little further north, or depending on how they want to do it. But I think that's really our next step. And as far as like doing, let me go back to, you know, just in general, this is, you know, the remaining day property that's still in the city of Grimes as well. We have mentioned to them in conversations at some point we could come through here and do an Aurora. I think it's just right now in our best interest to wait and see if they're more willing to come into Urbandale before kind of forcing the road. So I think that's another part of timing on all this, is it just, I think it's better for us not to come in as a heavy hand of government while we're trying to get people to come in.
Well, I guess as soon as there is access to the high school from Aurora, I mean, which would be down the road, they'd have to connect down there. I mean, I want to make sure that, you know, we're doing whatever we can to make this as safe as possible, because I think there will be a significant number of teenage accidents on this stretch of street, and everybody accidents really, when we have more traffic going to a southern access to the school.
I think our other option, again, will have to be on the table then at that point, if we're not ready, is really this section of road could be closed and nobody's using that curve anymore. I don't think it'll be popular, because I think most people like that connection, but that is one of the more extreme things we could do. Because really, like I said, there's this access point and these two residents, but everybody could still go all the way around to 128th and come back. So again, I think there's things to consider, but right now, there's not, we've looked at it, I don't think there's a whole lot we can do with what we have today, other than keep the trees and brush.
Yeah, I mean, I just want us to make sure we're keeping an eye out on any, you know, opportunities or ways to make it safer as built right now. And then I think you're right about, you know, having, somebody's got to want to have a long, you know, master plan. And
so again, I've had my eye on it since this was being done
Yeah.
20-some years ago. Thought it would be done by now, honestly, so.
Bridget, the danger is in the curve there.
yeah, and I mean, it's very dark.
Yeah.
It's very narrow.
I've navigated that.
I mean, it is one place that my kids know better than to, I mean, we would take car access away from them if they drove on that at night.
Is there any reason we couldn't make that into a T intersection and make people stop?
Don't know that people would stop. You don't really have, don't really have any of that cross traffic. And again, if I remember correctly, I think we've already got the advisory speed of 20 miles an
Yeah,
hour.
I mean,
which
it's
is pretty
just
much what the curve's
not
for.
an ideal
Oh, I know.
spot at all for cars, in
I'm
my
just
opinion.
spitballing about, you
Yeah.
know, is
50
there
years
anything?
ago, it was excellent for
Yeah.
a gravel road in a rural
Right.
area. But again, just know, yeah, it is something we do pay attention to, and we are watching. And again, same thing. as development happens, we realize that that's likely when Aurora will move up. Right now, based on the traffic study Des Moines Christian did, our 2 lanes just fine right now, until they really start adding a lot more traffic to it. You know, our heaviest traffic is by Webster, and we've already widened out that portion of the street.
Yeah, John, you mentioned that there may be a plan for a middle school. I don't think I've heard that.
Yeah, on their master plan, I think they do have like a middle school here, the high school up here, like I said, the early ed, and then their sports complexes up in here.
I think the middle school was like the farthest out.
Okay.
Like, that was kind of the way out area.
I think that in their traffic study, again, that was in their full build in 2045.
Yeah, and they're going to add on to that high school too.
Des Moines Christian, 'cause
Down in that corner.
they own all.
It's
you
going
know,
to be quite a
all-
campus when it's all
See,
said
it-
and done.
it should be-
Correct. when
This
it's
should all
said
be
and done.
protected. This is nuts. God dang it.
Our next one is on page 61, the community entrance signage. So far, we've completed 11 of our entrance signs. We currently have 6 more under contract for design. What was intended to be our 2025 project, which will now happen in 2026, was adding it to 128th and a Hickman, 142nd and Hickman, and 170th and Meredith. Where we've been held up, and I'll show here on 128th and Hickman. Originally, the DOT was not going to allow us any signs within the right-of-way. So we were working with the bank to get an easement for one here. We thought we had it worked out. They changed their mind and didn't want the sign. So we went back to the DOT and said, hey, this box is out a little more than normal. Would you let us put a sign just in this area? And they came back and said yes. So we just have to do a little redesigning to get this to work, but we can be in the right-of-way and get our sign to fit there. And then for the next, which will be, go back on here, which we're kind of showing down here on Hickman. We've got one at the east corporate limits, 70th and Hickman and 73rd and Hickman. These will not be as large as the signs we've done. They will be, you know, more like that far east end as you get kind of down by Kathy's and all that. There's not a lot of right of way. We're gonna have to do something fairly simple, but we'll do something a little different than just the sign, welcome to Urbandale. So we're working on those, and our designer is still coming up with ideas on that. But after that, we kind of come to, in 27 and in 28, we got roughly 7 more signs, and then we'll be kind of hitting the end of those based on our current boundaries. A couple that are still kind of hanging out there is, we had some on North Park, but we were kind of waiting to figure out the new branding and everything that can happen there, so we wanted to wait. And we looked at 86th and Hickman. We tried that earlier. The property owners were not willing to grant easements, and now it's been heavily landscaped, which probably makes it a little harder to do as well. But again, that's something that could happen in the future.
So when you were looking at, I wasn't sure I understood exactly, 70th and 73rd Street in Hickman, like coming right up, 2026?
Chances, if it would work out, our 2025 project and our 2026 project would all happen in 26. We can get that to work.
Is anyone but me concerned about putting a welcome to Urbandale sign at 70th and Hickman right now under its current conditions? I mean, welcome to a failing Bucks Arena, welcome to a big parking lot
Storage units.
of storage units. I just feel like that's not where we should put our eggs yet. Until we get something a little bit more flourishing there, it feels uncomfortable to me to say welcome to Urbandale there. And I don't know how much that would be of the money, but it's not money I would particularly support spending, just FYI.
Our first estimate, granted, hasn't been designed, but based on their initial study, it's about 67,000.
Okay, so it's not a lot of money, but relatively speaking, but it's still expensive for a sign, and
70th is where the, I'm trying to
It's Bucks Arena.
No, it's not.
No,
That's
that's
72nd.
72nd.
That's
I mean, it's all right there.
Yep, here's 70th. So 70th is the end of our new complete streets part that we
Rockland,
painted
yeah,
on
thank
down
you.
to there.
That's what I'm trying to
It's the
remember what that's called.
dentists and whatnot out there,
Yeah.
right?
I don't know. I just think about it. It just makes me uncomfortable. Just right in that corridor is not our most appealing portion yet. I feel like we've got things we're gonna try and do, and it might be a better time later, but never mind.
I think,
understand.
well, I think we've got a sign, I believe, on Hickman Road, right there at Kathy's Lounge, pretty much. It's just a, you know, it's a-
I think we have
It's
the
a
one,
little
talking
metal-
on the pole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On the
it's a
street,
metal
or
one.
usually on the one of the power poles, it just says welcome to Urbandale.
yeah, if there were ever a sign in a bad place, I think it's that one, but, but, no, point well taken. Yeah.
Like I said, if that's the direction, we can always try to change things up here and do some different locations under our current contract.
Well, let's think about it. I wanted to bring it up because I did mark it as question this. Question the logic of doing it right now.
Hey, Erin, I know, hi. What's going on at the Bucks Arena? Anything? Nobody's playing?
Some ice stuff and then the soccer, but they're still ice is cold enough for new sports, but not practical.
So no intention of
No, Michael,
disposition?
no, nothing changing.
Okay.
All right then. The next one is page 62. This is the Douglas Avenue Preservation Project, 111th Street to 121st Street. This is planned for next year, basically looking at predominantly patching between 111th Street and 121st Street. We're gonna do some patching and overlay from the ramp in front of Pilot. That area is a lot worse than the other sections, but that one's planned for next year.
We're getting this squeezed in before Hickman really starts to get,
Correct.
Correct.
Because basically, we're doing this in 2026. When we talk about the Hickman one, in 2026, most of all their work occurs on the interstate itself. So that, and all their detours and things, so we've mentioned that we have some projects, you know, they might have some like they have now where they have to set a beam or do something where they have to close it overnight. They're gonna work with us to make sure it all works within our projects too.
and this, would this interrupt the ramp, any of the ramps on or off?
Again, I have to look closer at the design, but chances are we would look to keep the ramps open. There may be a necessity depending on, because again, we got the trucks. If we did, we might have to detour them, get them off at 141, bring them around, down, they can get to Pilot and then back on. We're still, like I said, working out all those details.
The traffic is so crazy. I was just noticing tonight in the dark coming here at 5:15, traffic both lanes of Douglas heading west, full of cars all the way over the bridge to 100, you know, at least 128th. And Meredith is not much better. I don't know if it's just because Hickman's, you know, the way that the off-ramps are, but I imagine this will make it more challenging.
Again, there's,
But-
one, I agree, I think the Hickman project has impacted volumes on other roads. Thing is though, really with Douglas, can't wait a whole lot longer, or if we wait, we're gonna be down to, well, we're gonna close the whole thing and do a reconstruction, and you'll have, you know, months of detours then to get it done. So, I agree, just unfortunately, some of these arterials, there is
Yeah.
not a great time to do maintenance work. Our next one is page 63. This is the replacement of the railroad crossing on Douglas, just west of 100th Street. We did get a DOT grant on this, so The DOT will pay 60%, the railroad picks up 20%, and the city has 20%. This too is planned to be timed right around the detours. So really, it was the spring of 2027 was about the only window to do this before it was needed as a detour again. And our initial conversations with the railroad and everything, that seemed doable to them. So as we get closer, we'll fine tune the schedule.
So seem doable?
Well,
What's that
they're never
in
gonna-
railroad
It's
speak?
not, we don't have a written agreement and cost yet and all that stuff. They said, yes, we should be able to do it. Again, until you have everything in hand that has your estimated cost, here's how we're gonna do it. I mean, nothing's set till anybody shows up and does work, so.
Well, but it's a railroad, so,
Yep.
I mean, it's just extra fun, isn't it?
It is.
Kroll
And then we'll-
household is actually where the extra
What?
fun is. The Kroll household,
Oh,
as a
okay.
result of this, is where
The,
the fun is.
the Dave Kroll Memorial Crossing.
Actually, the scope of the project
Thankfully, it's not
increased to
memorial.
include that. And then we'll talk about in a minute, there's another railroad crossing
Very
that will be done
important
at the same
project.
time.
Is there a sign for Dave on this crossing?
Could put his bike helmet somewhere.
Is this crossing gonna be kind of constructed consistently with the one that does 100th? Like, cause I know the one that crosses over 100th is more of like steel and concrete plates and stuff, as opposed to just like the rubber, whatever they are.
We'll have to see, the railroad does the design.
Okay.
Does the design. And again, I think if this be similar to 100th Street, we actually help out with some of the construction too, so.
Okay.
We'll see, those details will get worked out. It's one of those things, there might be a grant, but more or less the railroad tells you what it will cost and how it will be done, so. Page 64 is a new sheet. Back when they were doing the carbon reduction program, we secured $100,000 to retime the traffic signals on Douglas from our east corporate limits out to 128th Street. We're really close to having an RFP ready to go out. This one here, once we hire the engineer, Bill would be responsible for coming up with the timing plans, putting in those timing plans, and then documenting at the end. We don't actually have to hire a contractor or anything. It's all engineering type work.
And those funds have not been impacted by the changes at the federal level.
No, when we've talked to the MPO, we're still good to go. And my recollection is we used to have an agreement in hand on these funds as well, so.
Synchronize and optimize, what exactly are we talking about?
So basically, your goal is with the traffic signals is, you would ideally like to make it on green all the way through. You can't always, sometimes, like for instance, 86th and Douglas kind of becomes one of those main things. You can't keep everybody going north, south on 86th Street, east, west Douglas, same time. So again, it's all about changing the offsets, which means you change when the signal turns green during your heavier times to try to maximize how much traffic can you get through. Whereas in the past, 109th is a location where we forced a stop, and that helps clear, the 114th, 111th Street area out. If you didn't break that just right, they couldn't seem to get out. So again, it's just a matter of working the traffic signals. And for instance, we have set up the signal at Hy-Vee and the 86th and Douglas to work together since they're so close. Otherwise, again, sometimes you get the preemption of things or a pedestrian. Sometimes you get the queue that backs up through the intersection, so we do our most to try to keep that flowing without things like that happening.
Hasn't anyone ever looked at that intersection at 78th or Colby Woods in Hickman?
All the time.
Yeah, I can't tell you how much time I've spent there.
Amen.
I'm just wondering if there's any way to ever get that so that we can turn onto Hickman. Is that what's going on? Okay.
What did you say?
78th and Hickman?
That'd be Windsor Heights, wouldn't it?
No, that's our first.
It would be Windsor Heights on the other
That
side.
is our first, that's our first one. We have three, well, we have the ones that are joint with Windsor Heights that we're in charge. West of there is Clive.
And actually, we've been talking to them about that signal because I think it's supposed to be a part of their adaptive corridor, but it doesn't seem to be working on it
Yeah.
right now. So it's one of those weird things where we both have some responsibility for it. It can be, but yes, I will.
That'd be cool, because turn there, because they're sure it's broken. We know it's not, but. Sorry, little idiosyncratic thing there.
I'm with you. Same traffic route. I usually just turn right and then turn left on 80th Place to get where I'm going.
All right, yep, we will look at that. Page 65 is our Douglas Avenue urbanization project. Out of the way here. So this project for next year is basically from the 100th Street area to tie in out with the interstate here. It'll be very similar to what was done from east of 100th Street to the creek with the landscaping, you know, the artwork type things. Probably the biggest difference is we've already got the established grass, so I think all we have to do is get the plantings and everything going. This will likely be our last, after several years of these type projects, because all it would leave that's in an out year is from the creek back to 72nd. And again, that's kind of our transition area from what we've done to what'll be new downtown. I think we need to figure out what downtown's gonna be to figure out how we transition. So again, we'll put that in an out year for later, but this will be our kind of our last one, what we'd call our Douglas urbanization projects and beautification.
Will that overlap, I mean, it's adjacent to this preservation project that we,
Yeah, we'll still be all right coordinating those.
okay.
Like there wouldn't be any street closure or anything, like or lane closure.
They'll have to be lane closures, because again, they'll have to be able to park and get their equipment out and unload all their stuff. But all our plans have notes that you have to coordinate with the other projects. So, and again, we manage them so we can watch and make sure that we're not, you know, closing stuff down and things. And I'm also hopeful that, again, the one that's out by the interstate for the maintenance project, that we'll keep hopefully a tight timeline on that.
So I'm just a little confused on Douglas, heading eastbound, where we're going through our downtown redevelopment project. Are you saying, are we gonna, I guess that's not that far, that doesn't go that far, never mind, I got it, sorry.
We got a whole nother page on the downtown. We'll go through in a little bit. Okay, on 66, that's our Douglas Parkway preservation, 128th Street west over to the creek here. That'll be a patch and overlay. We did receive $500,000 in our federal funds, and this is planned for 2027. And as I was mentioning before, this is kind of the area this year what we're gonna be doing for our patch program to the southwest of Douglas and 128th.
With that preservation project, is from a timing perspective, is that something that's gonna be tried to be cleared over the summer so that
Yeah, we'll do it so it doesn't impact summer, or actually during the summer, it won't impact the school. And again, this is another one, it's not a real long section, it won't take a long time to do.
When there are references to bad joints, is that just something that naturally occurs due to aging?
Yes.
I realized as soon as I asked the question how that sounded.
Because basically, that's why you'll see our public works crews go out there and you'll see the black, kind of the tar, and you can definitely tell where all the joints are. We're trying to seal those up so you don't get water in there, because once you get the water in there, then it freezes and it starts popping pieces out. Yep. All right, so our next one is on page 67 and 68, which is the downtown master plan. I think to kick that off, we'll let Aaron start, then I'll be back up to finish up on it.
Never thought I'd be talking in a CIP meeting.
in the role that I play here at the city. But, because this is a big one, and one that's multifaceted amongst all departments, and, wanted to come up and do a little bit of preamble related to this because it's, again, it's a big number. With downtown Urbandale, we've got the master plan that was approved in June. It's awesome. We've got things to work on, lots of things to work on. With staff, when we were talking about this, like, hey, we'll start implementing this stuff, but what really has to happen is that the private sector has to come along at the same time as the city. I think, what I hear, and this is Aaron, doing the armchair quarterback afterwards, but hearing about the improvements that happened in downtown back in the late 90s or early 2000s, we did this and it was great. And then the expectation was, and then everybody's going to want to be here and do all these improvements and things like that. And staff were like, we can't do that again. We've got to be able to have this hand in glove situation where the city's putting in and committing, as well as the property owners, as well as the businesses, as well as developers and that type of thing. So, with that to say, property owners are starting to come along. The city is starting to get committed. We've made 2 major purchases, or 1 purchase and 1 more that's under contract to close this summer to really get the middle of the big block going. We've got a downtown group that is really starting to gel related to special events. The block party in October was really a catalytic type of thing to get people to say, oh, this could be something different than just one day, the 4th of July, once a year in downtown Urbandale. The idea that, hey, we could do some placemaking here to be able to have it softened, have it people want to be there and want to come back again and bring their family and friends. And then also, so that's kind of the city side things that are starting to move, and then the coordination with the downtown businesses. But then, some of these redevelopments are starting to happen like way sooner than even I thought. 2 of them are the city ones. Yes, the old DQ, it needs a refresh. We're going to be going after funding from the state this January with a pre-application. You'll see that through the process with that, but also the opportunity with the Green State Credit Union because they will be vacating that in June. What that becomes is going to be a great project to work on collaboratively with everyone with that. So those are to me 2 major things along Douglas to get things rolling. But that's not it. Certainly there's interest from Big Sky Bread to be able to do improvements to their space, to have it be a part of the revisiting. We'll keep working on that as we go through in 2026. Kading Development we are working with them right now. We've had several meetings going through a major office expansion with them to be the first new building to sit on the plaza in the middle of the block. So things are really starting to move there as well. And then, a follow-on will be the mixed-use project that goes directly adjacent to them and the property that they bought with the city's help with a forgivable loan there. So those are things. And then, looking at the parking, we're trying to look at how the streets work, and I'm not going to steal too much of John's thunder, but how can we do on-street parking to be really efficient to get more spaces? Because hopefully we have a parking problem down there in the next couple of years. Because if there's a parking problem, that means there's people enjoying it with that. And then also, we know that we're in this in-between time of having a comprehensive or having a master plan approved, having the old zoning, having the new intent in the plan, and trying to get that all to work. So we are working through how can we get the zoning set, but do it as right as we can the first time through that. So seeking some assistance to get that done so we can give more certainty, because the city's in the certainty business here, that they can do what the city wants them to do, and the rules and regs are right there to be them to pick it up and be able to start design. So. But one key part of that is to make all this happen is the city's commitment in having these improvements really start to happen, because a new 3 or 4 story apartment building with ground floor retail isn't going to want to go along a 71st Street that sits the way it is right now. So with that, you don't want me to talk about the detail of what happens in the ground with this. So John will come back up and start talking about the details in that. But as staff, we were gearing up for this meeting. They're like, hey, I think we need to hit this one a little harder than the others because it's $36 million. So it's really encouraging to see that we've got things to come along, these improvements right next to it, that's gonna leverage them and make it all make sense as the new private developments coming alongside the city's investment in our OG corridor, as I like to say, so.
All right, so now the next part, just kind of how we go about changing the downtown through the infrastructure portion of things. So again, our first thing we're looking to do is in 2026 is to get a consultant to just design the new pavement markings down there that'll create Douglas in this area as a 3-lane roadway with the parking on the north side, so that we can get that part done and start kind of getting the feel for how things could be down there. You know, reason, again, kind of going into, can't really go further yet because we don't know what we want yet. As Aaron was talking, that we really need to come up with what's the zoning and what's the intent of kind of the big block right now. You know, we need to kind of get some direction on, make sure you get the zoning for setbacks. What do we want it to look like? Is there gonna be on-street parking? If so, what's the angle, that kind of stuff, so we know kind of the right-of-way widths and things, and how the sidewalks, you know, do we want 8 foot, 10 foot, in easements, in the right-of-way, you know, how do we want that to look to come up with the actual zoning? And we're from engineering, the kind of struggle we have is you can't really go out and hire the engineers to design it if you can't tell them what you want. We need some direction, and then they can start to design it. So again, we feel doing the pavement markings on Douglas will kick things off. We're also looking to, in the first year, we call it the interior commons, the areas we've been purchasing. You know, it worked for the one get together, and it could be good to kind of clean up call it the surfacing out there, maybe take down some of the old fences or put up some newer fencing, just, you know, to kind of call it spruce up the area to begin with and do some of the initial things. Because that's what we're hoping then, is that takes us to kind of the next phase is we get the thoughts on overall kind of what the zoning's looking like in the big block, what's maybe looking like in the little block, enough that we can write an RFP, hire an engineering firm that'll be able to, come through. We'd probably only go as far as a preliminary design on Douglas, but what that really accomplishes for us is we'll know exactly where we need right-of-way when people develop. We'll know where the grades and the sidewalks tie in, so how it'll impact developments as they redevelop, so that things work, what the driveways will do. So when we do reconstruct, you know, everything fits in. Having that preliminary profile has been huge for our arterials out west. We've been doing that for a while now, and it makes rebuilding the road so much easier when the developer builds the berm right where you need it to be, and all you have to do is tie into it. You don't have to build a 5-foot-high retaining wall, so you're not removing their entire berm. So we'll get that preliminary design. It does two things. One, it gets you ready for the development, and two, if it hits where, you know, hey, there's some major things looking to happen, we've got most of our design, we just need to finalize it, and we can build the project. The other thing we'll have them do is we'll have them do likely a preliminary all the way to final design on Madison and 71st Street. We'll look at having them also come up with more of a preliminary design. You know, we've got alleyways considered on both sides. That way we know where they're going to fit and how many properties have to actually be acquired before they could be constructed. So, you know, they may not be one of the first things we do, but at least we know, and if properties become available, you know, then we could look to acquire them as well. One of the other things we'd like to do next year as well is we had talked providing some detention for the developments down here at North Karen Acres Park. So within the engineering services, we'd also have them designed so we could construct that detention area and be ahead of the game on that. So basically, that's the big thing, is getting the designs going, and then I believe it's in, you know, 2028, start trying to look at how do we get some parking built. And then work on the commons, start getting that full out plan put in place. Because I think we'd also, again, with the roads and everything, we'll get the zoning, and then we'll hire somebody, and we'll get that preliminary going on how we do it. The tough part about that is you need to have kind of possibly several steps, because you could have some developments going on the north, other things that don't develop, so you got to figure out, well, how much can I put in? How do I make that work with some of the existing buildings still there, and still not have to tear a bunch out and do things? So again, our goal is, again, to make it as neat as soon as possible, but there's definitely some limitations to the existing properties and things like that we'll have to work around. And then we'll also, looking at right now, it's in 2029 to do the 71st and Madison reconstructions. So again, we're still at a very high level, but again, I think we're getting closer to more physical things happening out there.
So when we talk about the Douglas pavement markings,
Yep.
This would be, you were saying 3 lanes with north parking,
Yes.
so that would be center turn lane through the
Correct. Be
whole.
one
through the
east,
whole-
one west to center, and then the parking on the north side. Because that comes out of the initial master plan. That's what they recommended. Because the ultimate plan is to be the 3 lanes with parking on the north and the south.
Gotcha.
Just right now with a 4-lane road, you can't put the parking on both. It doesn't all fit.
Right. So and how does this connect in, because I know once you start getting near the mall and Merle Hay, it goes down to one and then
expand.
everything
Yep,
turns
it'll
off.
expand back out, yep.
Okay, so this would tie into what they've done right there?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, yep. Yep. We're
Because I
not
know
looking-
getting
yep.
into that it gets harrowing when you're not prepared
Right.
to get into the right spot, so that'll be helpful there.
Yep, that'll all be looked at when they do the painting.
You just did a great job there, but you know me, a little slow on this part. So when would the painting happen?
It'll happen next year.
Okay.
So I'm hopeful that, again, we'll get an RFP out here shortly, get somebody hired in summertime. We're
Planning of
painting.
it.
Yep.
So, got it. Okay, super.
And with how they're doing, like, because when we were talking about Aurora, it was like it's a full scrape,
Yeah.
full relay, and paint. Is this just like
It's
we're just gonna buff the lines out and
Get the lines.
Okay.
Yeah, it's concrete. We know we'll be reconstructing it, and again, there's nothing really, it's not worth putting an asphalt down to have a nice surface when that's not our whole intent now. So I think we can get by with just removing the markings and restriping.
Okay.
In almost theory, we'll see how they lay it out. You should almost be able to keep, it'd be a little bit different striping, but similar lane lines for the southern 3 lanes now, and then you turn the other ones into parking. So hopefully, it was not gonna kind of have that scarring that I was worried about with the asphalt, that you would still see all these lane changes.
And when you said like the reconstruction aspect, like when would we be thinking about a reconstruction of Douglas in that area?
Right now, it's in and out year. I think a lot of that's dependent on, when the development starts to come. It may be one where we think, hey, it's at the point, we need to rebuild the road and we'll get the development. I think it seems like it's sometimes you want to get some of the development and then you fix up the road. You don't want, because you fix up the road, everybody that's currently there is happy and there's no redevelopment, so. Yep. Okay. So our next one is page 69. It's the one I mentioned. I'm looking to reconstruct the frontage road here. This is in really poor shape. When it's done, we'll look to add some sharrows here. We'll still, like I said, for pedestrians, have a sidewalk up here. And then we'll widen out this sidewalk connection here to a trail. So again, you'll be able to come through by Public Works, come on here of your biking, onto the sharrows, onto the trail, and onto the new one that we'll be constructing to the west. This one is proposed for construction in 2028, so it'll be the year after the trail to the west. page 70. 70 is our Hickman Interchange project. Not a lot has changed in what's being proposed out here since, I think it was in early '24 is probably the last time the council had a major update from the consultant. Highlight a few things that have changed. Probably the best thing that's happened is we got a couple more grants, so we've got about 1.6 million more in funding towards it, which is great. One thing that has happened is we originally had some pillars through kind of the median areas as you came through those grass areas. The DOT decided recently that they would not approve those within the medians. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think we're looking to replace those with enhanced plantings and then also adding a few more street lights through the area that will have some on the inside and the outside and make those more into like banner poles. So instead of having the feature being right there in the median, the feature will be on the street light. So I think we'll still get the same effect. As I was saying, their main thing is in 2026 is when they'll be working on the interstate, and then 2027 is when we'll look to actually do all the work on Hickman. And as we know, that'll probably be the most disruptive part. Once it gets closer, they have not bid that or anything, we'll know more exactly what the closure limits will be and when they'll occur, but that hasn't been determined yet. My understanding, I believe the other ramps, the weather kind of messed things up, slowed things down, but anywhere between shortly till kind of end of the year, early January, they're hoping they have everything back opened up and ready to go. And I did see they do have a couple of our pad bridges on site. They probably won't get installed yet this year, but they're there for in the spring when they're ready. Page 71 is a new page. So this is an asphalt overlay on Meadow Drive from 156th Street west to Half Mile. This was part of that 2080E that was recently approved back on November of this year. It goes hand in hand with page 72, which is the overlay of Meadow from 156th Street over to 142nd. This was the portion that Grimes was going to be the lead on. They'll do the design and then we'll reimburse them because we took the lead on everything on 142nd Street. Page 73, and Jan can correct me at any time, but this is our medians for the art and landscaping. A little bit about the past. So we have done, the tree installation along Meredith Drive. And then we've also done it along 156th Street in the medians. So what's being proposed in 2026 is there'll be some median art on Meredith between 86th Street and 128th. Then also planting of trees on Douglas Parkway west of the interstate. Excuse me. So that's the plan on that.
And similar to the work that we had talked about on the east side of Douglas, there would probably be like a lane closed or something to kind of accommodate some of the construction and parking and things like that.
With this on Douglas, it's predominantly just trees. That'll be a fairly quick process. Okay. Yep. So again, I would see maybe we got a lane closure, be a moving one. They'll come in their spade, get the hole, move on down the road, make the hole, move on down the road.
So you're just envisioning trees, no native grasses or anything like that, or?
Jan here then.
At this time, we're looking at the trees, and with public art, it's the big Urbandale U. We'll be looking to bid those out, so that'll be coming before you once we get those, but perhaps some grasses around those. But otherwise, right now, for the upcoming years, the tree planting and the public art.
Okay.
Not to rule out grasses and so forth, but
Yeah, I just keep wondering if there's more room for bioswales in these medians, that kind of treatment, and I'm just wondering if we're missing some opportunities there with that.
we can certainly look at that.
Yeah, be worth thinking about.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
And our next one is page 74, which is the other railroad crossing on Meredith Drive, west to northwest Urbandale Drive. Like I said, they'll come in, 1 week they'll do this one week they'll do the one on Douglas. We'll just see what order when it comes.
You just said, like, it'd be staggered, basically.
Correct. The
only
same
one at a
crew,
time.
the same crew that comes in to do the one will do the other one right after. Just typically, it usually takes about a week. On page 75 is the reconstruction of Meredith Drive from 170th Street to 184th. This one right now is currently in 2030. The reason for that is Clive and Waukee are reconstructing Alice's Road over the next several years, and Meredith Drive is the detour while that work is being done. So again, we'll continue in conversations with Clive as they get closer, because the last piece they'll do will be, entirely in Clive, to keep an eye on their schedule. But again, really can't do anything on this road until they're done with Alice's Road. And then it'll be a matter of working with them on getting the funding on their end and everything all secure. So right now, it's in the 2030 timeframe.
And with the separated lanes as part of complete streets, is that above, like, that's at the curb grade, or is that like painted line separation?
Nope, that is just like we have over here today on 170th. So we've got the asphalt and the concrete, the 15 feet. We're already set up to go around the corner.
Gotcha.
Yep, so that's our intent, is to continue that.
Hey, John, can you go back into that?
Sure.
Zoom in there. Where Clive has those things in the rain garden things, can we do those anywhere? Those are really cool. I know that.
Anything's possible.
I mean, this is definitely not out of my wheelhouse of understanding, but they definitely bring a nice aesthetic to solving a problem, I believe. You can jump in, Pat, but they look really good. And I'd love to see them in our bag of tricks as we address things. I don't even know what they're called, but I know they've added them here and some other parts of Clive.
Well, that's someone I've been talking about, the bioswales or rain they're really kind of overgrown rain gardens, if you will, and kind of.
I mean, yeah, they can be added. It's again, just keep in mind, it's just another thing for maintenance. It's something that it takes some work to keep those looking good.
Well, it certainly does to get them started, that's for sure. And then it kind of depends on if we manage to succeed in people changing their aesthetics. That's the challenge.
Because across the street, we got a farm that doesn't mow their right-of-way at all. So we have, 5-foot-high weeds that we can't do anything about. So I think our aesthetic could be whatever we want it to be.
It might be worth looking at what we're doing and just seeing where there are opportunities to experiment with it and see what we could pull off. It has some real value from a standpoint of trying to help people understand the value of rewilding things and creating a less manicured aesthetic. It's true. But we've found in a lot of places just prairie reconstruction in progress can kind of take care of a lot of complaints once people understand what we're trying to do, or that this is a bioswale or a rain garden, or just that information can help. It just feels like we manicure a lot that we don't necessarily need to do, and we might be able to absorb more water and create more habitat and do more that way. I think when we get the report back, maybe from Dr. Rosberg, Jan, we'll have some more ideas and suggestions along those lines, and I know you're looking at it too, but it's just probably valuable for us all to kind of look at it, not just parks and not just engineering and public works, but kind of collectively. I know we're all working around the edges of it, and I know Clive is probably a little bit more involved in it than we are. And maybe we can learn a little bit about what they're doing and see if there's a little bit more copycatting we can do. I don't know. Might be worth thinking about. Because they can be beautiful once you get your mindset right for the aesthetics. They can be beautiful. Not everything has to be manicured English garden. Yeah.
Well, I comment on their beauty every time I turn from Alice's Road onto Meredith.
Well, in fact, Mayor Andeweg has probably one of the premier yards in the entire metro area for just this kind of thing, but I do know that requires maintenance. But it is stunning, and so it's out there.
And I take no credit. Charity does it all.
Yeah. We should have Charity come and do a
Yeah.
presentation, honestly. That would be nice.
Okay, our next one is page 76. This is a maintenance project on North Park and Plum Drive. We got this scheduled for 2027. And on page 77 is a maintenance project on Northwest Urbandale Drive between Douglas Avenue and Meredith Drive. This is scheduled for next year. It'll involve patching and an overlay, and this will be the last section of, call it 100th and Northwest Urbandale Drive from Hickman up to the interstate to be completed, so we'll have that whole area done. On page 78, this is the work to finish out our portion of 54th Avenue. So basically, our corporate limit is here, so we just have the south side of the road. Grimes will be the lead on the project because they have the north side of the road plus all the way over here just past the creek to do. So the majority of the project is theirs, so they will be the lead. They're currently working on putting together a 2080 for us to review, but again, they are the lead, but we're looking at in 2027 to be able to finish out our section, and then we have received $500,000 in federal funding for the project. On page 79, this is our reconstruction of Parkview Drive from 86th Street up to Alpine. We show it all the way up to Meredith because, again, we'll reconstruct through here and then we'll do a few patches up here to fix this portion of the street. As I mentioned, our other patching that we'll do this summer was like this cul-de-sac and the cul-de-sacs over here. Again, didn't want people thinking we'd forgot about them, that we've patched on this side of the street and in this area, then come do the main street because they were already asking us, why are you not fixing Parkview? As well, we're going to reconstruct it here in a couple of years. Just give us a little time. So we'll also want to get these cul-de-sacs done. So this, again, is currently under design and scheduled for 27.
So the cul-de-sacs would be done prior to?
Correct, in 26, we'll patch those this summer.
Great.
All right, so 80. This place I talk a little bit more about our extension of Waterford Road. So today, Waterford Road dead ends here at 170th Street. And then it picks back up 2 miles further to the west. Currently, our corporate limits go another mile to the west. So we had a study done in 2016. They looked at, I think it was 5 different routes. And this is the one that was selected by the council at that time. You know, ideally, you'd probably want to come through straight, but there was a rural subdivision constructed out here that basically, with the way the houses are laid out, the road can't go through there. So what it does is it comes out and then swings up by the power lines. We continue along the power lines, hopefully, and then come back out here again. Being outside the city limits, we do not show that on any of our drawings, but that is what we think the intent would be. So just kind of run through what we were looking at for alignment and just maybe hit on something to consider is also if we're going to look to do any annexation, the beauty of doing some more annexation out here related to this road is it helps us at least preserve a corridor. Recently, a piece of property's been bought right here where we wanted the road to go through. So again, when it's not in your community, you don't have a lot of say in what happens. If it would been in our community, we could have said, hey, here's how we need to work together and make things work. So just wanted to highlight there, you know, just because we annex it doesn't mean it has to develop right away, but it does at least preserve options for us in the future.
So what is exactly ours versus not ours again?
We end right here.
We end there.
So it's this black dot, so this area here, there's a couple property owners in here that are kind of missing otherwise. Again, we're everything kind of east of 184th, and then a little bit out of here is, and over to here is still outside.
It's fair to be confused by this, is it not? Okay.
Yep.
Very much so.
Yep. Yep, our northwest corner's got the odd boundary.
Yeah.
Okay. On page 81, it's our 101st Street and Dennis Drive preservation or maintenance project. This might sound like a new one, but it's actually phase 2 of last year's Justin Drive project. Just couldn't really call it Justin Drive when it's not on Justin Drive anymore, so changed up the name. But basically, this past year, 109th through Justin over to 100th from Douglas, we'd patched and overlaid that stretch, and then we did a reconstruction on a portion of Justin Drive. So this schedule for this next year in 2026 is just some patching that'll come off of Justin on 101st, Dennis Drive, and then we'll do some patching here on the frontage road.
Is this gonna have any consideration for curb cuts or anything with the potential project we're doing at the corner there?
We're actually planning on, we'll end here assuming that the rest of this will all be removed. And we're hopeful that Curtis will be able to tell me before too long how the driveway and what it'll look there. So yes, we can set it up for that. On page 82 is 106th Street and Prairie Drive preservation. Again, this is a patching project here to the north of Douglas and east of 109th. That is scheduled for 2027. Page 83 is a new project. Looking to do some patching on 114th Street, the area where we did the sidewalk work. Just kind of noticed when we were seeing the sidewalk being constructed, there's some panels out there that could use some attention as well. And then also on 106th Street, west of 104th, just north of Hickman, again in that business park area to do some patching in there. We've got that currently scheduled to happen in 2030. And page 84 is an out year. At some point, we're going to need to reconstruct 109th, 112th between Meredith and Douglas. We'd look for it to be similar to what we did on 104th, where we'd go from the rural cross-section to an urban cross-section. This one's probably just going to be a little more challenging than the 104th, just because there's a lot more semis and a lot more, truck driveways that we'll have to deal with. But again, right now, we did, it was several years ago when we had 2011, we did an asphalt overlay on top of the road, and it still seems to be holding up fairly well, so.
John, when we look at these and they're out, 6+ years, are we considering inflation costs when we factor in overarching costs?
We don't usually escalate that much on those future as it kind of moves back. We might every once in a while make an adjustment, but a lot of times where the real adjustments come in when it's 2 to 3 years out, when we look at it closer, or we got a consultant and we've actually done a design. Otherwise, a lot of these, like for this one, it's actually based on 104th Street. Since it's very similar, it was so much per foot, and this is so many feet, so it's going to be around there with a slight adjustment in there.
Until we get within.
Correct.
Range.
Right. Usually our 26, 27, 28s are more refined budgets and everything than the further out ones.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. Page 85 is the reconstruction of 111th Street south of Justin Drive. That's in an out year. That's be driven by development.
Do they come in with anything? They've graded all that, right?
Yeah, they've graded, but I have not heard of any actual firm plans to do anything yet. I think a lot of it was they could work a deal with the DOT, so they did a little grading of their own too to kind of try to prep for things, but I don't know if they have anything in the mind yet. And on page 86 is our 128th Street preservation, Hickman Road to Douglas Parkway. Got this planned in 2028, so that'll be after hopefully everything's all done at the Hickman interchange. And we've got a patching and overlay planned with, it was $1 million that we did receive in federal money to help with this project. 87 is the 142nd Street reconstruction. Again, we show it on the existing alignment. We've kind of talked through that. So again, I still think the existing roads we have now, you know, they have the capacity to handle the traffic. We'll keep watching for when is the right time to do these projects. Page 88 is our 142nd Street reconstruction project. This is one of our big projects for next year, and as you know, we're in the middle of starting the preliminary assessment process.
For this,
Yep.
I was just noticing that it's all prior year.
Correct. We were originally going to do it last year. We didn't have our 28E completely squared away with the Grimes. We were also not sure we were going to get the right of way all squared away, so we waited 1 year.
Okay, so it says it's prior, that's
So
just
they've
because we've got
already
all.
issued, yep, they've already issued the bonds and have the money in hand.
Got it, okay.
Page 89 goes with the project to the south. This is an asphalt overlay of Waterford Road up to 250. That says here there are Meadow Drive. So again, that's all bid as one contract here. That'll be coming. Like I said, our intent is to try to bid that the first meeting in January. Oops, wrong button. On page 90 is the 156th Street reconstruction from Waterford Road up to Meadow Drive. That's currently in 2029, and really what's driving the reconstruction of this road is the development. We look close in this north half mile, there's quite significant drainage that crosses through and around the road. When it comes time for development, that'll greatly impact where they can make driveways work, where they're gonna want them. You know, we allow them every 600. When you start having stuff like this, they might only say, well, we can only make it work every 800. So you really just don't know where those are going to be. So I think it's best to wait till at least we start having a kind of preliminary plan. Right now, you know, this whole area here is owned by one individual. So until they're ready to start doing it. A couple of challenges is, I think, you know, right here is just the line between the school districts. So if you're south of it, that's Waukee, here's Dallas Center. So again, maybe why this hasn't quite taken off yet. The other thing I would note is when I've been watching it out there, we don't have a lot of traffic, call it the full north-south commuter traffic on 156th Street yet. I'd say the bulk of our traffic is related to the school. But when I've watched, like I said, when you don't have much on 156th Street itself, it's pretty easy because, again, this being the border, you don't have people coming from this way to get to the school. Everybody comes in, loops around, drops them off, comes back out. Really not a lot of delay getting out of there when I've watched them. So again, we'll continue to monitor things, but just the fact that we don't know how it's going to happen up here, you don't, again, want to pave on through and then have to come back in the future and have the developer cut the curbs, add the left turn lanes. It's just never as good a product as building it all as one piece. We can help it. And typically, if you just try to do half, there's a lot of temp pavement that's pure throwaway as well. So as of right now, again, we're monitoring it, but from what I've seen, I think it's operating fairly well as just a 2-lane.
What about pedestrian access? I mean, that's my biggest concern, and I've seen complaints on the community Facebook page for the school district related to people in the west of the school accessing, you know, safe pedestrian and bike access to the school.
I mean, it's a little further out of their way, but again, for access to a school or access anywhere, I don't think it's that unreasonable. I mean, if we had the road rebuilt, you'd still cross at the signal. You'd have to come up here and get into the site, or you just come a little further. You do have to loop on around, but again, we do provide a safe access. The conversations I've had with the school, they feel that is accommodating a safe access to the school too, in their mind.
Okay. I know there were a lot is relative, but complaints related to access for bikers mostly, I think, safe access to the school.
I think
coming
some
from the
people,
west.
yeah, I think they would like to have some sort of enhanced crossing here. Typically, you don't add one there when you got a traffic signal just next to it. It's kind of like the Des Moines Christian, you know, they would like, some parents would like one there, but you've got a traffic signal right there is what we've looked at. So just using that as an example, but again, like most things in life, the most convenient thing, you know, isn't always the way you get to do things, so. So again, we're watching that. There's always the fallback at some point if we need to. I mean, we did this on Aurora. We built the sidewalk and none of the rest of the street. Was the most cost effective, but we did it. So again, you could look at something, but again, I would use that as a last resort.
Well, they're actively developing that
Correct.
area down there, so we'll see more sidewalk and pavement in there.
There'll be, yeah, more sidewalk and pavement in here, because we'll have, let me just pull that up. Where am I missing that at, Kristen? Where is the? Okay, there we go. Yep. There we go. So yes, this shows the street network and what's planned in there. So again, yep, they are working on that area.
Thanks.
Our next one is page 91. This is an out year for 170th Street, north of Waterford. And when the time comes, based on development, this will be a challenging project just due to the grades through there. Page 92 is Warrior Lane again, where we were just talking about being out here by our boundary. We do have plats proposed in here, and we've talked with a developer that's got some plans for what would come in here. Note that from this line south, this is Waukee, so it'd be a joint project. It's most likely at some point would be an asphalt overlay before we would get around to a full reconstruction. And that is the end of streets. Any questions? Okay.
John, thank you. I think we're gonna take a short stretch break. We'll be
Okay.
back.
That's a good idea.
I probably only have 5 minutes left of what I've got, then we'll be done.
Oh.
Up to you.
Well, are we gonna like chat?
You can chat. I just didn't know if you wanted to get through all this and then take a break.
It's just, yeah,
Either
You
way.
wanna get through it? Let's get through the rest
yeah,
of it.
yeah.
Just wanted to highlight, there's no longer a lighting section. Everything that was listed in there was built with a street, and there was no dollars tied to it, so it's all being built. If we ever had a specific lighting project, it would probably get listed under streets.
Okay.
So running into traffic signals here. So our first one on 95, we had looked at maybe using some of the adaptive technology. That's more, call it, not quite full AI, but it's more where the computer's picking when to do the signal timings. The only place we currently have that is on 100th Street from Plum up to 54th. This is also the same corridor that we're doing the timing on Douglas, so we push this back. We're already doing a timing plan. Let's see how well that works first. And our experience with the adaptive, 100th Street seems to be working well. The process with the DOT hasn't gone really well, and these projects are probably only really what I consider affordable is if you can get the grant to pay for the majority of them. So we'll see how that goes in the future. On page 96 is just in an out year for potential traffic signal. There could potentially be one at 133rd or Woodlands or over at Deerfield, but there can only be one at those 3 locations based on a DOT agreement.
I received a heavy lobbying effort from a former member of the council to place one of these signals. Yeah, Larry.
The tough part is just the way things developed. 133rd goes into a business driveway on their side, and their street goes into a house on our side. It just, you know, I think if these two were aligned, there'd been a signal put in years ago, and this would all been taken care of. But again, just kind of the way things developed there.
And from what I understand, Deerfield had no interest prior.
Correct. Basically, they were talking to us, seemed like they were interested, and then they said, nope, we don't want to do it. So we just moved it to an out year and left it privately funded.
We've talked to them a number of years about it. So.
That's another one. I hate to try to look back how long we've been talking to them about the potential.
Doesn't Clive not interested in it either?
The
or-
last conversations we had, I think their city staff was willing to be on board to work with us as much as they possibly could to sell it to the neighborhood. So that was a big change from the past. That again they were willing to work with us because again I think they see that in the long run it is a benefit to the neighborhood. They just don't want to admit it, and they'll realize it once it's there. They'll all use it. So, yep. But that's the same time that Deerfield decided they weren't interested, so we just kind of ended our conversations with Clive. So 98 is another adaptive program on Meredith. Again, still thinking about this project before we would move forward on it. Page 99 is a traffic signal on 128th and Plum Drive. I think we've got that now in 2030. That's 100% privately funded, really not needed now. I believe both of these buildings are still empty, so it hasn't been a huge traffic generation out here yet. Now here's the big one, is the traffic signal at 142nd and Meredith Drive. Our own internal staff did a warrant analysis on this intersection. So you typically would look at the 8-hour and the 4-hour warrants. So your 8-hour warrants mean you meet it for any 8 hours out of a 24-hour day, the different volume criterias. On this one, for the 8-hour warrant, it was like 2-3 hours is all it was meeting. But then there's a 4-hour warrant that's different criteria, and it has to be just 4 hours anytime during the day. Well, we had 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at the PM time, so we met the 4-hour warrant on this one. So what we've got in here is proposed is adding the traffic signal there. This in 2026, it would likely be very late 2026 because one, we'd have to get it designed, bid, and polls take at least 6 months these days to get those in. But again, it did actually, to my surprise, met the warrants, and we will look at having that project move forward.
Where would the signals be placed on the corner? I guess I'm having a hard time envisioning what they would be. They would be on all four.
Be on all four, and we already talked to. I've already talked to Grimes. we'll have a 2080 agreement very similar to the Meredith one that says if by chance the Harding property develops in Grimes, they'd give us 25% of the project. Otherwise, we just front the cost. Assume Hardings will come into us and nothing will.
Do we
ever
have to get
change.
any easements from the farm?
Nope, we won't need anything.
Well, I'm very pleased to see that these warrants warranted a light. Is that a dad joke?
I don't know.
Mom joke?
All right, and then on 101st is just a future traffic signal at 170th and Plum. And then their last one is on 102. It's just a future traffic signal in an out year at 170th in Waterford.
One question that I've heard is regarding what would be the curb cut for Des Moines Christian on Meredith. Just generally from a signalizing perspective.
They did a warrant analysis with their initial traffic study for us. We're not close on the 8-hour or the 4-hour. There's also known as a 1-hour warrant. They did meet that for just over, just over the line for 1 hour out of the day, which again, on 100% projected traffic, I think we'd have to wait and see. I do have, if I can remember right, I had some of their traffic study here. So we're looking at, 1,300 is what they project at full build out of the high school that would come out. I mean, we have lots of streets with those kind of volumes that don't have a traffic signal. And Meredith Drive, starting out, is around the 15,000 now. They're talking about, when opening day, it goes to 18,000. So it's not like the traffic's that much different. And typically, your peak for when the school's getting in and out is going to be different than when your commuters are coming through there. And I hate to say it, there's never any great traffic control when the football game gets out, once they eventually have their stuff. But I think that's all a ways down the road too. So again, it's something that can be watched if it does get to where it could meet the warrants. The other part is, I think once you put the connection down to Aurora, though, you open up different avenues to leave, and that takes some pressure off of Meredith as well.
Sounds good.
All right. Break time. We will
Okay.
reconvene at 7:45. How's that? That gives you 6 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, does everybody want to go through your comments? Or the other question I have is, do we want to talk about the sign that was discussed earlier and try to wrestle that to the ground tonight? Or would you rather us take another look at it and, do you want to leave that hanging until, because the recommendation, we can come back with another recommendation. The council doesn't need to approve this until January 6th, but I will leave it
I
open to the
personally have
council.
more comments than the sign.
Well, no, I'm just meaning that one particular thing. At the end of the day, like, do we want to wrestle that to the ground? Do we, how do we want to handle it? Because it's 8:45, and I don't want to assume everybody wants to be here for another
7:45.
7:45. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add to that is that one is in Westover, so if you don't intend to do that, I need to change the bond. That's a
Oh.
geo bond for Westover TIF district. So if
Gotcha.
it's not gonna be there, I can't issue that, cause I don't have any other projects going there.
Okay, then, that would maybe be a never mind, then.
Was-
But I do have a fair point that we should think about for the future.
Yeah, and where, was the concern there just for that one, or was it basically the whole set of
It was
those?
just that section along there is, we are not welcoming yet. And so I just felt like it wasn't
Well, yeah.
where I wanted to put
Timing, more of a
timing and
issue.
money. Yeah,
But should, maybe, I mean, it's still our city, I mean, yes, I mean, maybe what's there is not all that welcoming, but maybe
Yeah.
if we have a sign, at least we're welcoming with regard to that.
yeah, yeah.
One step in that direction then too,
Yeah.
of like, is the sign, and then maybe somebody redevelops the spot, and then it,
Yeah, I don't know. That was, it's a minor component of my thoughts, but I did want to bring it up. It does bother me that would be kind of some of that would be the backdrop for that. But also, I'm probably remembering things a little wrong too about what's where. Maybe that's more closer to that Rockland Business District or where's that, the old dry cleaners?
It's the Rockland Business.
Yeah, there's the
like you
real
said,
estate company
would
there, too.
likely be kind of by the arena there, because I mean, it's as you're coming out of Windsor Heights, coming into Urbandale, at least
Yeah.
we've got it. You know, it's something, it could still possibly work. It could move further north off of Hickman a little bit as well. Again, what brought about the whole original study is, you know, just, again, nobody knew when they were in Urbandale, so our whole goal was to add signs at all kind of our entry points, so people would realize, hey, I am in Urbandale now, I'm not in another community. That's kind of, I mean, it wasn't so much looking at what we're showcasing at that intersection as much as just making sure people knew. So, I mean, it could possibly, again, it's probably, I don't know, we'd want to slide it way north of the ice arena. But again, those are maybe other options too. I just think being down by Hickman at least draws the attention that, hey, you have come into Urbandale. Even same thing from our east border coming in on Hickman. Yeah, it's probably gonna be nothing more than maybe a pole with maybe a banner on it that says Urbandale or something, because our right-of-way with the sidewalk is very, very narrow. There's not much we can do there, but it's just more was to bring attention that, hey, you have entered Urbandale now, so you just know where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got one of those pole signs on Urbandale Avenue, around what, 64th or
You're
so?
talking the street
Yeah,
sign, the
yeah,
street sign.
I'm just
correct.
talking about those.
Correct. That was the intent on these, was just to be something a little bit more enhanced than the street sign that said you were in Urbandale.
Got it.
Was the original intent of the study.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to make a big deal out of it one way or the other, but I personally think I'd prefer to have the sign have a different backdrop. If it's possible to move it up, move that one up, that would maybe be a good idea, because that's introduction to, you know, a shared lane and, or Sharrow's Lane Road-ish area, isn't it? Doesn't it kind of transform into being almost 70th? It
Yeah.
does some funky stuff there around the ice arena.
Correct, and that's where we can pose the question to our consultant, because we haven't, they're still coming up with concept ideas. We haven't done any survey, we haven't really picked firm locations yet or anything. We just gave them the guidance of the general area, which was based on our initial, based on our initial report that was done.
Yeah.
So again, as you said, it.
Yeah, see, that's just like, oh my God.
we could put a sign next to our sign that says, you want to renovate an ice arena?
Oh, dear. Well, I've said my piece, so if nobody else is feeling it, then we should just drop it. And it is getting late, and maybe it's not something to like mess changing the CIP at all over this, but maybe more the consideration of where we plop it at the final analysis, and certainly not to mess up a GO bond thing, you know, like let's not go to a lot of work. But you
Point
see
is
my
well
point.
taken.
The primary health care part is quite attractive, that spot, once we get there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities to reinvest right there. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
it happening.
Yeah, maybe that's just it. It's the word, the wording on the sign. Welcome to Urbandale, a reinvestment opportunity.
Their heights.
Okay. I've said enough on this. I did not mean to take this kind of time. It was a
You have
concern.
other, the suggestion is, do we want to go through at least your preliminary thoughts? And so let's just start over here, Pat. We'll start with you. You
Okay,
started off,
yeah,
so-
yeah, I do have two thoughts. One is, I really would like to see us incorporate a solar project. And going back through the solar report that we had, I still think that it might well be the Fire Station 42 is maybe the best option, although it's hard to know. But I really am uncomfortable with us not doing a solar project since we did that study, and at least having the numbers in front of us so we could make a legitimate choice. And that looked to be a grid project on the ground that kind of got laid out in the report fairly decently, and with what I'm guessing would be maybe a long-term, but a payback. And I just want to say a couple of things about why I think it's important. With the tax incentives going away, it makes it very difficult for homeowners to do the kind of solar work that they might have been able to do in the past, because they typically move every 10 years, or they move often enough that it's difficult for them to do that work. A government like ourselves, when we do a project, we hang on to those projects for a much longer period of time, so we can wait for the payback. And I think it's very important that we lead and that we demonstrate. The other thing about the 42nd Street site was it's increasingly becoming aware it might be a very highly visible site for us. And so, you know, in the fire station itself, people love to go to the fire stations. They love to see what's there. So it's got a visibility component. But I'm not married to that being the particular project. I'd love to see us do one that has visibility to it. That's one thing. And then the other thing is I was asked to kind of check on that grant that we applied for ICON so that we could potentially look at moving up that project on the west side of Urbandale for the creek access. And I have to be a little circumspect here, but I think that we could look at moving that up if staff could accommodate the effort. We would probably have a good possibility of being able to get it funded largely with grant dollars. No way of knowing for sure, but by pushing it back, we are pushing back any opportunity for the grant. So those are my two comments.
Okay.
And then the third comment is, thanks, everybody. Fabulous work. Great work.
All right, thank you. Let's go down the line.
Well,
Bridget,
I really agree with everything that Pat said about the solar project. She articulated my concerns and we talked earlier this afternoon, and I definitely feel the same way. I think we need to lead. And we went up to Boone this summer, and the city of Boone and Alliant Energy have as we were heading to the railroad, or the rail car thing.
Valley Railroad, where you run your own little
There's a
truck.
joint project between the city of Boone and Alliant Energy that has a, grid on the ground. I don't know. It might be something, but it's well signed that it's a partnership between the two groups. I don't know if it's something to look into with our local Mid-American Energy or not, if that's where we want to
I do have to say, in Mid-American's defense, they've done a wonderful job keeping rates low, which makes it harder for us to get payback. So good on them for that, but I still think we need to be doing this. So,
So I'm still, and again, this was 2 weeks ago, and then we had more information given to us, or was this last week? Jesus. Last week, at 2 meetings last week. The rec hub, I'm just not, no, I'm not convinced with the new information that we have that we really, do we need to do anything there? I mean,
We will have more information in the interim on what that could look like and what those adjustments to the capital investment could be. But we don't have hard numbers on that today. I mean, that's one we just have to slide right now with the numbers that we proposed, which was the best at the time that we were putting it together that we knew, because we still have some hurdles before we would substantially amend that project. That's my expectation. That's my hope, is that that project would look significantly smaller because of other things that we're working on. But there's a couple more hurdles.
Right.
But we are making progress.
but do we have to, if the other thing were to happen, do we have to do any, I mean, can we put that much?
There would be in our we believe there would be a small
doing the
small level
one
of
bay
investment. I think there's going to need to be some grace on the specifics until we can get the numbers
Well,
back.
yeah.
But a significantly less expensive. I don't want to say bare bones because it sounds like it's Kmart and it's not Kmart, but a significantly less expensive capital investment there to prioritize other investments that are more exciting.
Right. I mean, I think it's great. I don't know. I mean, I want to spread it all out, and if we have to, find some money to move a $200,000 project forward from the out year,
Yeah, and
that might be a place, because I think.
where's that, Jan? Because I can't remember how far out that was. Which,
Icon.
Page 29, I think.
page 29.
The creek access was in an out year.
Oh, yeah, it
because
really
we
wasn't an out year.
Didn't know, and if we will find out in January if we get that grant, it would be a $125,000 grant. The number we put in was the same number we put at Walker Johnson. It probably would be higher than that for the
Okay.
overall costs of the project, but by the time we find out of the grant in January, hopefully we'll find out within the next 2 weeks, so then we could.
Maybe move it up to 26, 27 kind of scenario-ish.
That would be up to
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
all of you.
okay. Got it.
Nikki's balancing.
Well, we could do a little juggling of some things, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's not $2 million, so.
Yeah,
It's
right.
more reasonable in what staff can all do in 26, 27 as well.
Right,
So-
right. I do think staff capacity is a fair concern.
I guess most of my concerns are just related to weighing those different park scenarios, but I'm very excited to be very patient, because I think the timing is actually going to happen in the near future. So, yeah, I just agree with Pat about the solar, and would love to see us be able to utilize the potential grant funding for the creek access if it's a good possibility, so.
Yeah.
I think that was probably really all I had, but again, this is, I know, a tremendous amount of work for all of you out there, and I appreciate it. So thank you. I think that's all I have right now.
Okay. Blake?
I think one of the things, with the two larger building projects that we're doing, I think, I'm happy with the specification of the add alternate type of stuff. When it comes to solar for those projects, I think that's a good idea to have that kind of in structure there so that we can really consider that when we get to those projects too. I'm very happy with some of the work that's been done to bring some of the west side projects into a little bit more clarity, get some of those the kind of more tangible, solid amenities put in. I think that people are going to be really happy with that, and provide some good balance to some of the work that we're doing in both sides of the community. Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
Well, probably echo what's already been said, but I did have a question about Walker Johnston Park improvements at page 27. I was kind of browsing through this earlier today. The number that is there for 2026 is $380,000 for design and construction drawings. Where's that number come from, the $380,000?
Jan, do you want to address the source of the estimate?
Typically, when we look at projects, it's 8 to 10% of the construction costs, so that's just an estimate of what we typically do. Obviously, that would be determined when we determine the scope of the project and who we would contract with.
Excellent. That answers the question.
Okay.
So it's not really, I mean, that's not just a placeholder really at this
Absolutely.
point. Okay,
Yep.
all right. I had the same questions about the rec hub. That's been answered. I support the comments about solar, and also happy to see us getting more concrete about the west side. Other than that, that's
About what, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
about the west side.
Oh, what's that, yeah.
Walnut Creek and, yes.
I don't have anything. I feel like we've covered it. Except thanks to staff.
Yes, thank you.
David, you said we were gonna be approving this the first meeting in January?
That's the January 6th, right? That's the time frame that I think we set out from, I think that's consistent with last year.
I recall we've always done it the second meeting, but it doesn't, I
Oh.
guess it doesn't really. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Good thing we don't have any new council members.
Yeah, there's, not to belabor the point, but there's not a good way to deal with that, because you either ask council members to approve on the way out, or you ask somebody who's been here 5 minutes, oh, by the way, here's the third most important decision you're going to make, and we need you to make it right now. So
there,
thankfully, we
done
don't
that.
have that problem.
I've been here 25 minutes.
I just want to give a few comments. I'm generally in full support of this. Again, thanks for the hard work on this. I do want to say, especially on the sidewalks and the stormwaters and street projects, those are hard ones to do, guys, and thanks for putting in the priorities. I think they look great, and they're projects that we definitely need to do, and I think we've got them prioritized pretty well. So, with that, then we will. If you have any further comments, we can put it as a placeholder for next week's meeting if you want. I don't know if we want to do that or not, or just.
Certainly have that conversation at the end of the meeting.
Or if you have any thoughts, get them to David to assimilate, and we can come back with this, and we'll certainly have that on the agenda for approval on January 6th. All right. Anything else? before we go to the
Well,
order?
I'm just asking, so you guys are going to be able to go back and look at a couple of these things and see if there's some adjustments that can be
Yes,
made?
I mean, we definitely will definitely want to have conversations, just looking at that west side project too,
And a solar piece?
we'll get more in the solar, we'll get more information
Okay.
out. The solar piece, the end of the day, it's just, do we want to wait? Do we want to use 2026 as a transitional year? Try to get more familiar with the performance of the existing project, or does the council want to put in a placeholder where we really, we may not have really good cost estimates, but that's something the council could direct us to do for one of the middle years, and, which is two different approaches. I mean, the council could make a decision later to adjust that, to move that back, or to not do it. We had hoped to get you more information on the existing project, and just, we haven't, we're gonna have to carve out time to do that. That work will have to be done based on my observations during the quote-unquote downtime, which, when is that again? But, yeah. I mean, there's the way I look at, the way I was, and whether I verbalized it or not accurately, I don't know, but my thought was, we owe the council better information on the performance of the existing solar project that you invested heavily in. If in 2026 we get good information on that, which, will tell you how it's gone, and we can clarify what the next type of project would and wouldn't have available to us on the incentive side. We have the construction moving forward very aggressively, timeline-wise, on police and fire. Those we know we're going to add alternate. I mean, those would be significant six-figure add alternates to do. I mean, you could downsize that so that, or if those two things aren't enough and you want something else, then you could direct staff to put a third project in somewhere in the middle, and we could attempt to pull together the information that you need to make that policy decision at that time. But
I personally would sure like to put a placeholder in somewhere, and I feel as though we might have enough from that, if I have the right initials, right, QSTN
with a consultant
study, that we could do that without a lot of difficulty, because they did some pretty good work in there on what it would take to do it. The question was, from a tax incentive standpoint, would it still pan out? And that maybe we could wait to determine.
Yeah, there won't be any, I can't imagine a circumstance where there'd be tax incentives for a project that we would be constructing in
26 or 27.
or 28.
I can't either. But I still think that there's a payback that we might be able to live with. So, well, that's my personal opinion.
Right.
Just FYI.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, everybody, for participation. Thanks for the extra effort, guys. Appreciate